No doubt you've heard how Daniela Dawes suffocated, killed her autistic son Jason. You probably have an opinion on the court's decision to let her go free. But there's much more to this family tragedy. For a start, there are the revealing home videos of a very troubled child. But as you'll see, a child who could be cheerful and loving too. Then there's Jason's father, a grieving, angry and bitter man. And always in the background, the unimaginable burden of caring for a child with autism. All clues in this intriguing story of what drove Daniela Dawes to kill her little boy.
I have to live with what happened on August 4, but it's very hard to comprehend that the person that I am ever did such a thing. I miss him so much every day. I wish he was here, and it is so wrong that he's not and I am.
This is home video of Daniela Dawes' son Jason, the little boy she suffocated to death in the family home last year.
I cannot forgive what she has done.
Do you think she should be in prison today?
I believe anybody in Australia who takes a life should go to prison. My wife should be in prison.
In thousands of homes around Australia, this is the reality of living with an autistic child. How long could you cope?
No. It's chaos. It's very chaotic. My day might start at 1 a.m. On a good day, it's about 5 a.m.
Is it every minute of every day?
Yeah. From the minute you wake up till the minute you fall asleep in your bed until the minute you're woken up again. It's totally full on.
Aidan Fasanella has severe autism. He's 7, but he has the mental age of a tiny child. Aidan is unable to talk. He's trapped in an often frightening world of his own. His life dominated by bizarre habits and endless repetition.
Because to play for Australia...
It's lonely, it's hard, it's all those things. Time for trampoline.
Desiree Fasanella is a single mum living just above the poverty line. Raising Aidan has been an exhausting, relentless battle for her. Have you ever been in a place where you've thought, I can't do this anymore?
Oh, every day, yes. Oh, yeah, I just can't do this at this level anymore, you know. But then, you know, you sort of get through the day and another day starts, and just look for the small positives wherever they might come and dwell on that.
There is enormous stress. The divorce rate is very high. The depression rate is very, very high. The effect that it has on siblings is devastating. So in personal terms, it's horrendous. At the moment, it's really just building up his vocabulary.
Professor Tony Attwood is a world authority on autism, and all too often the Brisbane psychologist sees families devastated by this chronic disability.
Great.
He says there's simply not enough government support.
It is a burden to have a child with autism, but it is unfortunately made far worse by the system. The parents shouldn't have to fight the system. The system should be there to support them. They have enough to do with their child with autism.
Autism and related conditions affect almost 1 in 100 children in Australia. Now, I'm sure you'd agree that's an alarming statistic. But judging by how much importance our politicians place on treating this condition, you wouldn't think so. Waiting lists for services are endless, and when treatment does become available, it's often too little, too late.
I have to accept responsibility. They were my hands, they were nobody else's. But that wasn't me that day. And there were a lot of things that pushed me to the point where I cracked.
Jason Dawes could be a happy, loving boy. But joy could quickly turn to frustration and anger. This 10-year-old child needed round-the-clock care.
Jason couldn't talk. Jason couldn't get dressed on his own. He couldn't get his own food. He wore a nappy to poo. He couldn't brush his own teeth. He couldn't say goodnight. It wasn't easy.
Okay, family photo.
By August last year, Daniela had reached breaking point. Her marriage of 18 years was falling apart. Her father had just died of cancer. She was deeply depressed. All this on top of Jason's autism. On the morning of August 4, she snapped.
He was playing. I, being in a depressed state, wasn't really up for playing. And I remember he ran off, and I know I followed him into the rumpus room, and then it was just something that was all happening before my eyes. I had no control over what was happening that day. I was watching it and feeling very helpless. It's really hard.
Did you realise what you were doing?
I think I did, but I just had no control over what was happening. It was like being on autopilot. I really, it wasn't a conscious thing that was happening.
There's no question you had terrible problems. You had no support, you had major depression. But does that justify killing your son?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
A detective came over and told me that there was a little boy inside the house. And at that stage I knew my wife had taken my son's life.
Nearly a year on, Jason's father, Craig Dawes, is still struggling with the shock of what he encountered at the family home on that August afternoon.
The fact is, my wife held my son down, placed a hand over his nose and mouth, and held him there until he did not struggle anymore. And there is absolutely no way my son did not struggle.
Daniela Dawes pleaded guilty to manslaughter, but 2 weeks ago she walked free with a 5-year good behaviour bond. In court, Craig Dawes pleaded that his wife not be jailed. But in the aftermath of her trial, he has changed his mind. He says she should be doing time.
Well, I was still in love with my wife the day before this happened, and there is love there for my wife, but the deed she has done and the pain she has caused has blocked out a lot of that love for my wife. I used to bring Jason down here and play in the afternoons. I miss my son a lot. I cry each night. I wish he was with me.
Just how bitter and divided the Dawes family has become was all too apparent as we filmed this story. Daniela left Sydney with their daughter and took out an apprehended violence order against Craig. The bottom line is your family is ripping itself apart.
I would just like to have a bit of peace place my son's ashes, which are at my house, in a place of rest somewhere and get on with the rest of my life. To go through a loss like this and have it turned around that I now have an AVO on me, what more does my wife want to extract from me?
Ready? Which one is horse? Oh, you remembered too. Well done.
What both Craig and Daniela Dawes do still agree on is that Jason never got the professional care he needed to learn even the most basic of skills. His condition demanded at least 20 hours of therapy a week, but he was lucky to get 3. And to get even that took constant begging from government agencies.
Fighting the battle on my own was very difficult, especially when I was on the phone all day, ringing one department to the next and nobody would help me, and they pass you along.
So it was tough?
Yeah, it was very tough. Eventually it wore me away.
When you heard what had happened to Jason, what was your reaction?
I know she wouldn't have come to that decision without enormous heartbreak over a long period of time. And so my heart went out to her.
Did it surprise you?
No. I think that the pain and despair that she was going through, and also for Jason too, meant how on earth could she continue with that pain and death, both for Jason and herself, was the only way to end the pain.
Professor Tony Atwood examined Jason when he was 3. His advice to Daniela and Craig was that Jason needed immediate therapy. And as they struggled to get that therapy from dozens of different health services, he saw their growing despair. Is it as simple as saying, if he'd had early intervention, may have been a different story?
I think it would have been a different story. He had a personality, and I think behind the behaviour was an intellect that I thought we could work on.
There was potential?
Oh yes, definitely.
While there is no cure for autism, it can be managed.
As he gets trapped in those autistic mannerisms.
But it needs a whole range of different treatments: speech therapy, occupational therapy and specialised education.
Oh, and that's a number 2. And so by early intervention, programs that teach all those sorts of skills that that person needs, the brain can, in a way, almost repair itself to a certain degree. The politicians need to recognise that autism is here. We think it may be increasing. And that if you invest in early intervention, you save in the long term by turning someone potentially from a sponge for taxpayers' money to an actual taxpayer.
Wait. What does Aiden need?
For Desiree Fasanella, the pressures of caring for an autistic child finally destroyed her marriage. And for much of Aiden's life, she's had to struggle on alone.
He's big, he's loud, he's cute, he's funny, he's a handful, he's just a dynamo. And he's really difficult to manage. But I love him. When Mr. Crickety came, he played a silly game, and all the kids in the street, they like to do the same.
Does the future frighten you?
Yes, very much, because he doesn't have a great future, and I'll be his carer till the day I die.
Daniela Dawes will carry the burden of what she did till the day she dies. While the daily battles have ended, there can be no peace.
Every time I see a photo of Jason, I know it's my fault he's not here. And that's really hard.
Do you ever feel you'd still like to be with him?
Yes, every day. Every single day. I don't care how hard it is. It was very special.
Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our extra minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.